at the North County campus of Cuesta, and I'm really pleased to welcome you today to the celebration of Black History Month. And the Cuesta College Library Virtual Book Club is really honored to have co-hosts here today from our Black Student Union. So Dawn Grillo and Darius Rognes are going to be your leaders and facilitators through this hour. We would like to record their presentation, but if you have any concerns about that, please private message me, and we won't start the recording until everyone has a minute or two to weigh in on that. So please message me with that or any other.
Everybody. Awesome. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Darius Rognes. I'm a first-year student here at Cuesta, political science major, and I'm also a part of our Black Student Union as the vice president, and I'm also the vice president of our ASCC student leadership program that we have here on campus. And so I am super excited and grateful that the library reached out to Dawn and I to really have this awesome event with you all virtually. So yeah, I'll pass it off to Dawn so that she can introduce herself too.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn. I am a third-year student at Cuesta. I am currently a math major, and I am our president of our Black Student Union, as well as the president of our ASCC, which is our student government here on campus. So I'm also thankful for this opportunity, and I hope you guys enjoy what we have prepared for today. Could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in US history. So we're taking this month to celebrate and really recognize Black voices and the impact that Black people have had in America. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Awesome. And so yeah, now with this slide right here, so as we know, the book that we are going to be discussing and really talking about is the 1619 Project. I have my book right here. Also, I see Denise has hers as well. I love it. Awesome. And so with that, we have this book, and we're also going to be looking at this book first and really hearing from the author who wrote it. And then we'll also dive into Born on the Water, which is a children's illustration that really talks about some of the core concepts within the 1619 Project. And so as we go throughout these next couple of slides, we're going to be listening to a couple of videos, first talking about the 1619 Project. And then afterwards, we're going to be listening to a short excerpt from Born on the Water. And so as we're going through both of those slides, we really want you, afterwards, we want to have a conversation, really reflecting on what we learned about. And so we have these 4 guiding reflecting questions that we'll be revisiting after we watch both of those videos. And so the first question is, what words and phrases stand out to you and why? What emotional reactions did you have and why? Third, how do the authors use creative writing to address these historical events? And finally, what new information did you learn? And so with that, just keep those in the back of your mind. And then after we finish watching both of those 2 videos, we'll go ahead, have those questions pulled up again, and we'll all be ready to share. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the first video.
The 1619 Project is a series of essays, of short stories, of poems, and photography that really examines the 400-year legacy of American slavery. So the year 1619 marks the year that the first Africans were sold into the colony of Virginia. And through this series of essays, we really argue that very little about modern American life has been left untouched by this foundational institution. I've been obsessed with the year 1619 since I was a high school student. That's when I first was introduced to the date by my Black history teacher in Waterloo, Iowa. And I realized that that date was foundational, and yet no one had ever thought to teach us that date. And it really symbolized to me both how long Black people had been in this country, how foundational slavery was to America, and also the power of erasure, about who gets to decide what dates and what stories are important and what dates and what stories get left out. So I've been thinking about this date for a very long time, and I've also spent 20 years as a journalist trying to use the past to help us understand the inequality that we see in American life today. So as the 400-year anniversary of the year 1619 was approaching, I just kept thinking that this foundational American date, this momentous moment of 400 years of American slavery was approaching, and yet most Americans still had never heard of the date 1619. And I was no longer a high school student, but I was a journalist at the New York Times with one of the biggest platforms in the world. And so I decided to pitch a project that would really, I hoped, force us to confront what does it mean that slavery is one of the oldest institutions in America, and how has that legacy shaped the country that we live in. I knew that I couldn't just write a single essay, that for me to write a piece would not be big enough for this project to really do what it needed to do, which was force this reckoning, that I wanted to take all of these aspects of American life that we think have nothing to do with slavery, things like democracy and capitalism and music and our legal system and even our highway system, and show that that legacy of slavery permeates so much of our society. And so I pitched the original project, which was a project of the New York Times Magazine. And then, of course, after that, realized that there's still so many stories we hadn't told, so many areas of American life that we hadn't had a chance to talk about in the original project, and many ways that we wanted to expand the essays that were in the project in the New York Times. And that's how we decided to turn the original 1619 project into a book, which would allow us, with more time and more writers and more space, to more fully tell this story. This probably won't be that surprising to the general public, because the thing that probably surprised me the most while working on this project is also the thing that has surprised other Americans the most, and that has really led to so much of the argument around the project, which is the role of slavery in the American Revolution. I realized that even as someone who has studied Black history in this country for more than half of my life, even as someone who's been very skeptical of American narratives of exceptionalism, I'd never really questioned what slavery and the preservation of slavery and the role of slavery might have played in that era of the American Revolution. Most of my studying had been about the era in the 1800s going forward. And it was in researching and reading for this project and really trying to make an argument about democracy that I came to understand how big of a deal slavery was even in 1776, and how enslaved people were not just sitting idly by waiting on white people and white colonists and what they were going to do, but that they were actors and that they were seeking their freedom, and that it was their actions that in some ways led some of our most prominent founders to decide that they wanted to join the revolution.
So that's this video. Do you want me to go on to the next one?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll pass it off to Dawn to say something before.
So before we start this video is actually just going to be an audio of someone reading the children's book that was made to accompany the 1619 project, which helps make it just a little more digestible and helps, just kind of disperse the information in a way that is visually appealing, and then also makes it easier for kids as well. We can play the video.
Okay, so we're going to do the first 5 minutes of this.
Book Readings with Miss Bernard. Hello everyone, and welcome to another Book Readings with Miss Bernard. Today we are reading the highly anticipated story, The 1619 Project, Born on the Water, written by Nikole Hannah-Jones and Renee Watson, illustrated by Nicholas Smith. questions. My teacher gives us an assignment. Who are you? She asks. Trace your roots. Draw a flag that represents your ancestral land. Most of my classmates can count back many generations and learn about the countries where their families came from. They draw their flags, but I leave my paper blank. I do not know where I begin, what my story is. At home, Grandma asks, "How was school?" I tell her about the assignment, how I couldn't finish it, how I can only count back 3 generations here in this country, where my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents were born. But before that, I do not know. I tell her that I am ashamed. Grandma gathers the whole family, says, "Come, let me tell you our beginning. Let me tell you where we're from." What Grandma tells me. They say our people were born on the water, but our people had a home, a place, a land before they were sold. 400 years ago in 1619, our ancestors were taken and brought here on a ship called the White Lion, a whole year before the Mayflower arrived. But before that dreadful voyage, there was a time when they did not pray for freedom. There was a time when they did not sing about overcoming. Their story does not begin with whips and chains. They had a home, a place, a land, a beginning. Their story is our story. Before they were enslaved, they were free. They had a language. They spoke Kimbundu, had their own words for love, for friend, for family. The kingdom of Undongo was nestled between the Lukala and the Kwanza rivers on a high plateau in West Central Africa. The people were good with their hands, knew the power of a seed, how to plant it, water it, how to make something out of nothing. The people were good with their minds, good at math and science. They used shells for money, counting, recording, trading. They knew what their work was worth. They spoke Kimbundu, had their own words for joy, for grow, for home. Their hands had a knowing. Their hands had a knowing. They knew how to hold a baby close, how to rock the child to keep her from crying. Their hands knew how to mix herbs, how to get the just right flavor for a meal. Their hands knew how to beat and twist and shape iron, how to make gardening tools, armor, and weapons. Their hearts had a knowing. They knew how to make work joyful, how to create rhythm by pounding the tools against metal, knew how to make music to keep them company as they worked. Their minds had a knowing, worldly, curious, sharp. When they met the white people, they learned quick, taught their tongues to speak Portuguese, taught their eyes to read strange words. They knew how to mix the old with the new, how even an ancient people always had more to learn. And they danced. And the people moved their feet, moved their whole bodies to the melody of horns and stringed instruments, of marimbas and drums. They danced to celebrate, to mourn. They danced as a way of worship, to offer thanks. Their bodies a song under open sky and bright sun. Their bodies a swaying testament to the beauty of creation. Stolen. And the white people took them anyway, kidnapped them, baptized them in the name of their God, stamped them with new names. Ours is no immigration story.
Thank you so much for everybody for being present and watching both of those videos with us. And so now we'll go ahead and jump into the reflection piece of this. And so again, here are the guiding questions. And anybody just feel free to raise your hand virtually and then we'll go ahead and call on you. And then we'll go from there. So yeah, would anybody like to answer any of these reflection questions? Bailey, thank you for getting us started.
Yes, thank you for these questions. Thank you for the holding of this space. I tend to go towards reactions around emotions, and the question, what emotional reactions do I have and why? I guess I want to say, I value that we are watching this together and that it's not just some abstract story. So I appreciate calling out attention to the emotions that come up in my body and maybe in others, and that doing this together with you all and seeing your faces matters to me. But a special thank you to Darius and Dawn for, and for Denise and Karina for helping you create this. And thank you for all who've shown up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bailey. One of the things that Dawn and I love to do within these Zoom calls is give virtual snaps. So if at any time you love what somebody else is sharing, feel free to give them some snaps. So thank you, Bailey. I know we're very grateful to be here. So thank you. Yeah, Allie.
With the first question, like what words, actually, let me look what the actual question is. What words and phrases stand out and why? I thought it was really interesting. I can't remember which essay it was in. When they refer to plantations, they refer to them as forced labor camps or something similar. Maybe people can refresh my memory, but I thought that was a really powerful and important way to redefine the way that we look at plantations in the South during, pre-antebellum, you know what I mean, that type of thing. Just because I think words really make a difference in how we think about something. So every time the person who read that particular, it might have been Nikole Hannah-Jones, I can't remember, every time she said that, it really helped me to think differently about what plantations were, and make me think about other times in history, like during the Holocaust or other things that we readily accept as being forced labor camps, you know what I mean, or something that's just really horrible historically, to really think about them in what I would say the correct way, because it seems like it's been watered down otherwise when we don't use the appropriate language. Like when we call like the slaughter of indigenous people on this continent, when we call that like a genocide, that redefines the way that we actually look at that, because it was never taught that way, to me at least, when I was growing up. So I thought that was a really powerful way for them to sort of shift our perspective on what happened to Black people on this continent.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Allie. Yeah, Christina.
Just to piggyback on what Ali said, I appreciate bringing up like the comparison of the Holocaust, because one of the discussions that has continuously taken place is how people can publicize and essentially market the plantation as wedding destination, or they look at the beauty of the land and how the houses are so well built, but nobody would take the Holocaust location and have a wedding there because of how beautiful the scenery is. And so just acknowledging how serious those locations are and how much pain is rooted into that land. And I wish it was taken as serious. But so I appreciate for bringing that statement up.
Thank you, Christina. Rachel.
Hi, I'm thinking about that very first question in terms of words and phrases that stood out from the storybook, and what I really liked was that repetition of they had, right? They had a language, they had a knowing, and it also brought up an emotional reaction. It was very moving, and kind of connected to what the overall sort of goal, which is a reclaiming of that which has been so studiously erased, which is that there was a whole history, there was a whole people, that what was done was a terrible violence. And I liked the they had, especially, it felt very, very nurturing. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. Juliana.
I just want to kind of add a little bit on to what Rachel was saying. What stood out to me, some of the words that stood out to me was in the children's project book. I remember, I don't know if I'm saying it specifically, like if I'm reading it right, but it said they baptized us with their gods and gave us new names. So what this makes me think is that pretty much they were stripped from everything that they knew, from everything that they believed in, you know, their beliefs, their values, everything was taken from them. So they were robbed of that, you know, and it's just really, it's really sad when you think about that, you know, those kids, those, you know, just didn't have, you know, no identity because everything that they knew was taken away from them. And it just really shows, like, you know, how sad, you know, everything is. And it just makes me really emotional to think about that. So thank you guys so much for sharing this with us.
Sharon.
Speaking still to the children's book, I think what was really impactful, and we didn't really see it in just the short clip that we had, but the expression that they said that ours is no immigration story. And that was really emphasized over and over again. And through the artwork and the short poems that were on each page, I think that narrative that was really emphasized about this not being an immigration story, but it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, thank you. That definitely stood out to me as well. Absolutely. Denise.
Thanks, Darius and Don. It's so great that you guys agreed to do this. I mean, you spent a lot of time and effort and thought. I really appreciate it. And I think everybody that's here does too. I was just going to say, maybe answering emotion. The last vacation I got to go on, 2 years ago in 2019, which seems like forever ago. My husband and I went to Virginia and we saw some family members, but we also made a point, we wanted to go to Williamsburg and Jamestown and Yorktown and see some of these places in the history of our country. So now in reading these books and all the things that have happened since then, I can actually picture Jamestown, the physical layout, the park now, the interpretive center, the remnants of the fort and all, and of course this great big river and the swampy area. And so I can picture the landing of the ship in 1619 in my mind's eye, and it's a powerful image.
Sharon.
So I just wanted to say again, going back to the picture book, only because I just have a lot of background with this book, is that when this story starts out, how light and bright and vibrant that story is. and how it's talking about the art, the music, the science, the buildings, the technology that they actually had, and that they came from this place. And then once the kidnapping and taking these people from their home, the story becomes very dark and very physically dark in color and tone and what's happening in the different pictures. And the different, on the flyleaf pages, it has scarification patterns on here that were part of the culture, and how those scarification patterns are used throughout the book to really emphasize, like the X means death, and this symbol, whoops, sorry, right here, this one is life moving in various different directions. The X's are death, and then the other one is rebirth. And so how those scarification patterns play a significant meaning throughout the book with the different pictures and what's happening. Like you can see the life, where's the picture of the girl? Right here in her dress, and you can see that pattern happening throughout in her dress. So, but yet when they're coming across on the white lion, where's the picture of the boat? Here we go. You see the X's on the boat throughout as they're traveling over, across the ocean. So I just think the significance of those pages starting out light and then moving dark, it plays a really emotional connection for what was and the in between, and then where they move to. So because the pictures do get lighter as you go on and learn more about their lives.
Yeah, thank you. That definitely plays a huge significance in it, especially how it gets so dark so fast really represents how rough this experience was for so many people. So thank you. I see Rachel and Juliana. I see both of your hands up. Is that from an earlier share up? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Lori.
There are so many, strong lines, striking moments in both of these texts. But I want to, I guess, to start, a place for me to start is the legacy section in the children's book. There's a page spread which talks about how African Americans have led the fight for democracy in this country. And it just goes through the phases of all of the battles that they have fought, which all Americans are benefiting from. And I guess I would just include a quote. It says, and because the people survived, and we're talking about the people who were kidnapped and brought to the United States, and because the people fought, America has equality in the law. And because the people survived and because the people fought, America began to live up to its promise of democracy. It is the people who fight for this democracy still. And I just found it personally very moving and very, inspiring isn't even the word. Just the idea that the fight continues, and we should take courage from and inspiration from the example of the people whose legacy is celebrated in this book.
Yeah, thank you. Bailey.
Just going off of what Lori shared, I'm going to lower my hands so I don't forget. Part of, for me, my journey in digesting, to use Dawn's beautiful word, slavery, is recognizing that it's got to be a collective effort where we do these kinds of things, and something that I think a lot of us already do and know, but I just wanted to bring it in our community together here, is to not lose sight of that radical hope and possibility that Black Americans, you know, there are too many to name, just survivors who teach us to hope in the midst of such darkness. And I guess I'm saying that for myself around, you know, in the darkness of humanity, that there's moments to also not overshadow, but to make room for, to bring into also the need to name that kind of power, that radical hope, to sustain us in doing this kind of work together. I don't know if that makes sense to any of you, but I just wanted to offer that as something I'm working on, and I could use any support anyone else has around that. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Bailey. I actually wanted to say that it is really all about working together, and things like this project and the picture book, they do make it easier or more palatable, but it's also important to keep in mind that, like, sometimes and most times this stuff like this isn't palatable, and you can't run away when it gets hard. You can't run away when it gets tough, because these are real people's lives and these are real things that we go through. So as painful as it is to read these things and to see these things, a lot of people live this life as well. So to take inspiration is one thing as well, but to also kind of almost, I would say, grieve with them and to have the empathy, that is also a driving force that helps keep this fight strong. So, Karina?
I really love that, Dawn, about grieving, because I think that's how we all feel. We're kind of, and the thing that is, I think, very powerful about this book is that it not only does have the sweep of history, but it brings it into the current moment. And one of the moments I was really struck by in my most recent reading of the essays was a passage about the COVID crisis and the effect on Black Americans, and the story that was told about a Black woman doctor who I think this was before vaccines, and she got into the hospital with COVID, and they gave her some treatment of what was available, and she knew from her clinical expertise that she wasn't responding to the treatment. And so she said to the doctor, you need to, you know, what would be the proper thing to do is that you would give me another course of treatment. And the doctor didn't do it. In fact, he didn't even listen to her, didn't listen to her lungs, sent her home. And she made a social media post about the experience and said, you know, outlined everything, all the logical reasons why she was doing, all of her expertise, all, you know, and then with a lot of emotion said, this is how Black people die. This is how the medical industry kills Black people. And, you know, bad ending to a horrible story. She died, 52 years old, and she died. And it's not, you know, it's not a historical thing to grieve. It's a contemporary thing to grieve, thing that's happening to our friends and family and ourselves and our lives, and the lives we live with people that we love, you know, all the time. And it's just, that's what's so, you know, we want to keep the optimism. And I love the book in that way, because it is about the optimism and the continual fighting spirit and all the contributions and the untold story. But it's just, it's hard to keep two things in your brain, like the fact that it's still happening, you know, and we can't plead this kind of like, there's this whole founding father story about, well, they didn't know, that's just how it was, you know, Thomas Jefferson held slaves, well, everybody held slaves, who can blame him? And yet, you know, it was wrong then, it was wrong now, people knew it was wrong then, the rest of the world knew it was wrong then. So anyway, yeah, I guess I'm just, yeah, trying to grieve and then trying to be hopeful and then trying to do good and then trying to, yeah, it's a lot.
Oh, thank you, Karina. I saw Susan, did you have your hand raised earlier?
I did. I'm missing a raise hand option down here, but what I wanted to say was I haven't read the book, the adult version or the children's book, but I plan to. But I've already made a note of words that I would like to carry out into the world. And that those words that I wrote down were, their story is our story. And I just think that's an incredibly deep and important message that's only 5 words long. But I think for my whole life, the story has always been us and them. Whatever groups there are, it's always us and them, and from one group or another. And if somehow we can learn the message, the deep message of their story is our story, and really feel compassion and empathy for the other, then I think that's where the real healing is going to begin, the real healing of our nation and our culture and in the world. And I don't think we're there yet. And it's very disappointing to me at my age to have seen this play out all my life, and it's not done by a long shot. But maybe their story is our story, will be understood one day. So I'm gonna borrow these words already and use them when I can. And thank you for this wonderful program.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. And feel free to drop those 5 words in the chat. I think that'd be really helpful for everybody. Totally. Mark, I saw your hand was up. And then after Lisa, feel free to share.
Susan, sort of piggybacking on hers. And one of the concepts, words that resonated throughout this book to me is the word fear. And one of the essays is called Fear, but it's there, I think, throughout. It explains Brian Stevenson's talk about punishment. It explains, and it's in the opening chapter, the essay on democracy, that really the slave codes sort of solidified a concept of the white race, so that we white people could look down on somebody and feel superior to somebody. That race concept wasn't really there until you had slavery, and then you had to somehow become afraid, and it resonates throughout the chapters and the references to the revolution in Haiti and the slave codes. And I mean, it continues to resonate. Dr. King, at the end of the letter to the from Birmingham jail, talks about the perpetuation of fear-drenched communities as one of the obstacles to overcome. You know, it's there in the motives of the revolutionaries from slaveholding states to preserve their economic way of life. It's there in Republican legislatures in Alabama and the court allowing them to get away with the kind of redistricting that they're doing to reduce Black people's voting power. And the big challenge, I think, for us Black folks is stop being afraid. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. We should live up to our creed and be an inclusive nation. We can only be strengthened from the skills and the abilities and the characteristics that everyone brings. I mean, we're a nation of immigrants, those that weren't indigenous or brought here as slaves. And we all bring something to it. We all can. We don't necessarily have to suffer from others, but that fear of the other, that fear of Blackness, that fear of Black people, I mean, it's all over the place. the political movement that moved to the South from solid Democrat to solid Republican. There's a wonderful book by political scientists in Arkansas called, I lost the title. I'll think of it and put it in the chat. The Long Southern Strategy, which is basically a three-prong of racism, sexism, fundamentalism, with the fundamentalism being kind of a very late add-on to turning the South from one party to another, but maintaining the South's racism. And I mean, they're not claiming it's only in the South, their research is in the South, but that whole fear of the other is a huge barrier to all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I really want to go back a little bit to Susan. Their story is our story. That's such a powerful statement because it really demonstrates how intertwined our destinies are and our everyday lives are. And, with all the effort currently, with all the book attacks and banning, it's just a way of denying that fact and re-emphasizing that fact by denying those history. It is history. It's just the history of the whole nation. It's not just, something that pertained to people from African descent. It pertained to everyone. That's what we live every day. And that's just denying our whole history. And then in response to something Mark just said, that, our creed is not inclusive. Even if the first few words of the Constitution say all men are created equal, denying, I get it, it's the human mindset, but still it's denying females access to a lot of things. And at that time, people of color were not considered human. They were not part of that. They were excluded. And that, I don't know, I'm just very passionate about stuff like that. I'm just got my heckles up with all these book banning and controversy right now. That just makes me very ashamed of a lot of people that would think that we can't, like even a book like To Kill a Mockingbird, it's just, sorry, it's just beyond my comprehension that you wouldn't want your children to read that. It's just beyond my comprehension.
Thank you. Honestly, I also think it's just right now what we're seeing is a deliberate attack on Black people in America. A lot of this stuff that seems coincidental or kind of shocking, or I can't believe this is happening, has been happening under covers or under wraps for years. And so a lot of it is just so widely accepted now that it can be mainstream, that it can be at the forefront like this, and that they can be so bold about how they're doing these things right now. So I feel like for a while, what we've been advocating for is to discuss and to have these conversations and to be aware. And what we're seeing now is it takes more than awareness, that the people who are doing these things, they've always been aware, and that they're deliberately doing these things because they're aware of the implications of what they're doing. And so we need to basically take it in our own hands and start acting, is basically what I'm saying. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Don. I see a hand raised, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Don. I think that was wonderful. And I think, one of the reasons that so many attacks are happening at the level of narrative, which also includes why this particular project is so significant, is because narrative is how we make our world, right? The stories that we tell are exactly this. This is how we make our reality. This is how we change our reality. So we do have to keep talking. We do have to keep putting out the narratives that actually tell the truth about our nation, which is shameful and which is horrifying and which is ours, right? Like we did it. And that's simply the fact. And the more that we, as Americans, we do not like to taste anything bitter, right? Like we want a single narrative that glorifies and tastes sweet to us. And so we have to go against everything that we have been taught in order to actually accept what is true. But narrative is where it is absolutely in play. And it's the same things that have been happening over and over and over again. This is not new. These are not surprising. And what does need to happen is to move into action, right? And to call it out and to be absolutely unforgiving of those who want to sort of explain their bigotry as sort of like ignorance or accidental, right? It's not. It's purposeful, it's meaningful, and it's designed to maintain white privilege. And no, that's how I feel. No.
Thank you, Rachel. Lori.
I think I want to take my hand down. I'm processing what Rachel said and not sure what I'm thinking and feeling at the moment.
Yeah. Dwight and then Idana.
Hi, I'm brand new to Cuesta. I just started this semester over in the engineering department. I was glad to see that there was some recognition of Black History Month, African American history, whatever you want to call it. Because I've been in the industry for like 4 decades, and almost every that even had an organization to be inclusive and promote diversity never really recognized it. And I wrote that to my last place of employment to the president without much of any real good response. But the thing that for me makes me kind of proud, I can't even think of the right word, but with all the awareness, and I say it's contributed to the internet, because like Don said, these things have been going on my entire life, over 6 decades. And it's just something that people just almost have come to a point to accept, but it's not acceptable. I mean, yeah, the Constitution is flawed. It was written by people, a group of people that were an exclusive special interest group, I always say. They were the original special interest group, original white people, white guys in particular, who commanded all the wealth, they commanded all the power, and they didn't want to let it go. But they were using different segments of society to help continue to make them rich, continue to help them have power. And from what is implied by our Constitution, it's not right. Because everybody's got certain inalienable rights to be happy, to live a life that's peaceful, to prosper to some degree. And with all of the things that have happened back in 2020, that's part of the reason why I'm here. Because when I saw this up in 2020, I'm like, what am I doing? And I said to myself, the only thing I really have to offer is my STEM education. So I've been trying to do that since then. And thank God that Cuesta has given me an opportunity to get into the collegiate field. And I really, it's been tough because I got called at the last minute, but I've really been enjoying it. But I think that if nothing else that has happened from all those incidences back then, at least people have really become more aware than I've seen in my lifetime. I really appreciate this current younger generation because I think they are the ones, that's what it's going to take, is for people to band together to say, no, this is wrong. When they see something happening in front of them, to speak up. I mean, we all have got to support each other because we're all in this together. And I thought one thing that would happen out of the pandemic, sad to say, would be that we would somehow realize that we're in this closed system called Earth. And that what one person does, no matter what side of the earth is on, it's going to affect eventually, or maybe some minute degree, somebody else. If it's not the person next door, on the other side of the world, in the country. So I was hoping that the pandemic will make us realize that we are dependent on each other. We all are part of the story, like Susan was saying. It's not just your story, it's my story, it's everybody in this country. It's actually everybody in the world, because the same sort of thing is going on time and time again all across the world. And I feel like it's just time to stop it. And I hope that this generation, along with us older generational people, can all band together to help put some kind of dent in this coming to an end. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Dwight. And we're so grateful to have you here at Cuesta. Thank you. Thank you. Idana, I saw that your hand was raised earlier.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I just took it down in
Oh,
anticipation. And yeah, amen to all of that, Dwight. Awesome. I cannot echo that enough. Well, first off, sorry, I apologize. I got in a little late, and I just wanted to thank all of those behind the scenes to make this space possible. And I also want to recognize maybe those that didn't make today possible, but you are here today on the chat, and you've certainly made space for these types of cultural discussions, African-American, Black history, people of color, Indigenous. I'm personally grateful for all your work, whether it's within your academic field or in professional development. And I'm totally humbled by many of your works, young and all different ages alike. And I just want to share a couple or some thoughts, everyone's thoughts. There are no, like I like to tell my students, there are no wrong thoughts. All of your feelings are real. I see you, I hear you. And I can only imagine with just 22 of us here, how much feeling, I could feel your feeling right through the Zoom image here in this time together. And I just want to say that last night there was I don't know if anyone had a chance, there was sponsored by Cal Poly, there was a speaker from UNC Wilmington, Dr. Wilson Okello, and he spoke very euphorically and with just candor. And his topic was really fascinating to me. Actually, I wasn't sure. I mean, I could guess what he was going to talk about, but the topic was called "On the Potential of Love as the Root of Black men's relationships." Excuse me. And he talks about Black feminism. He talks about seeing people as another face, another number. But if we are, there are a lot of things I took away from his talking, but kind of bringing that word in of love amidst these words of fear, reject, resentment, non-human, non-existent, judgment, but instead bringing in this word love as a movement of a political movement, in fact. And if we are to, I feel a lot of energy on, what am I doing? What are you doing to help this movement? We just have to keep going, right? We have to keep making these spaces here, whether it's 15 people today, 100 people tomorrow. In our small little community, we can still make waves. And so I just wanted to there's so many feelings in my head, but just wanted to share noteworthy things that Dr. Okello shared, that this idea of love and practice comes in 4 ideas. That he practiced to love as you transition to an ancestor, draw so much of your wisdom from ancestors like bell hooks, but distinct interconnected ways of love as resistance, love as affirmative, love as experiential, and love as redemptive. And I don't know about you all, but my long list of civil rights, liberty, justice, equity inclusion, diversity. My list of books is long, and he's got a lot of books that now I have to add to my list. Always growing, but I just want to say again, thank you for this space and this time and allowing me to share with you. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, thank you so much. Would anybody else like to share? Or we can go ahead and jump into one of our next slides for today. Awesome. Yeah, so if we could please screen share once again. Perfect. And so with these final 30 minutes that we have, we wanted to just showcase a couple video clips. And so one of the things that's so important is looking at, and the book does a really great job, the children's book is looking at history, but also looking at how we are being so resilient and bouncing back and really contributing incredible things within our culture, within just overall our community as a whole. And so one of the things that we really wanted to end off with is really celebrating Black art and the Black community. And so we have, I think, 3 short clips, or 3 to 4 short little video clips of very impactful and influential Black artists within our history. And so let's go ahead and jump into the next slide, and I'll pass it off to Dawn.
Thank you. So we'll start with Billie Holiday, and let me read my slide. Eleonora Fagan, known professionally as Billie Holiday, was an American jazz and swing music singer with a career spanning 26 years. And honestly, she was very impactful, made great music. And if we could press play on the video. Thank you.
And now a little tune written especially for me, Strange Fruit. Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rock, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange
Sweet, let's go ahead and jump into Maya Angelou. So Maya Angelou is a very famous and incredibly influential American poet, memoirist, and civil rights activist. She published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, and several books of poetry. And let's go ahead and listen to one of her most famous poems, Still I Rise.
You may write me down with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
Great selection. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next one.
Thank you. And then on to our next person. Simone Biles. So Simone Ariane Biles is an American artistic gymnast with a combined total of 30 Olympic and World Championship medals. Biles is the most decorated American gymnast and the world's 3rd most decorated gymnast, behind Belarus's Vitaly Sherbo and Russia's Larissa Latanina.
It is and as well done as anybody, man or woman, has competed in.
And here we go, right off the bat, the very first tumbling pass. Triple twisting, double back.
Money!
Just keep making history, Simone Biles.
medals at home. Someone give this girl a crown.
Also, but let's go ahead and go into our second to last video for today. So Viola Davis. So Viola Davis is an American actress and producer. She has won an Academy Award, a Primetime Emmy Award, and 2 Tony Awards, which this makes her one of the first African-American woman to achieve the Triple Crown of acting. So let's go ahead and check out when she won her Emmy.
And the Emmy goes to Viola Davis, How to Get Away with Murder.
This is the first Emmy win and nomination for Viola Davis, who is a graduate of Juilliard.
In my mind, I see a line. And over that line, I see green fields and lovely flowers and beautiful white women with their arms stretched out to me over that line. But I can't seem to get there no how. I can't seem to get over that line. That was Harriet Tubman in the 1800s. And let me tell you something. The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity. You cannot win an Emmy for roles that are simply not there. So here's to all the writers, the awesome people that are Ben Sherwood, Paul Lee, Peter Nowak, Shonda Rhimes, people who have redefined what it means to be beautiful, to be sexy, to be a leading woman, to be Black. And to the Taraji P. Hensons, the Kerry Washingtons, the Halle Berrys, the Nicole Beharies, the Megan Goods, to Gabrielle Union, thank you for taking us over that line. Thank you for the Television Academy. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our last clip, which is to really just end on celebration and just show some of the most searched and really important impacts that Black people have on Google. So it's a cute little clip.
Coach Kelly, y'all ready?
But just like life. All right.
Air Jordan ready to take off.
Can I get an amen?
And welcome to the very first National Oprah Winfrey Show!
Awesome. Thank you all so much for watching this collection of different videos with us. Let's go ahead and jump into the next slide.
I don't have another slide.
Oh, okay, no problem. So on our end, what we'll do is anybody interested. Oh, I think is, let's see. To Lori or Denise or Karina, would you like to share? Because I know that you guys have collected different resources on the library website. So where could we go to learn more?
Oh, right. I thought that there was another slide. I don't know why it's not going to that.
No problem.
Lori, can you share that? The LibGuide? I'll stop my share. Stop my share.
Yes, I will. Hang on one sec. There we go. So are you seeing the screen with the Cuesta Library?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so this is the library guide for this month's selection. And we'll plan to add resources from Darius and Dawn today too. Darius, did you want to comment or?
Yeah, so we wanted to really end today with sharing some resources for you to further learn more during Black History Month and of course beyond just this 1 month. And so with that, we have a collection of different resources that Dawn and I have gathered, but thank you so much to Lori and the rest of the library team for creating this. So where can people find this website?
If you go to Cuesta College Library and then library events, that's probably the quickest way. And you can see everything we have coming up. And then you can see here was the link that I was just showing you.
And I think I've managed to find the slide with your resources, so I can go to that now.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I put the page for the library events in the chat there.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then also just to shout out, our ESU is doing an event as well with the CPAC with Sean Monday on February 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. And tickets are still for sale. So we highly encourage you to participate in that. He's a vocalist and a bassist. So it's gonna be a really interesting time. Please come support our Black Student Union, come support for Black History Month. And I'll drop the link in the chat.
And this is the first link that what a reading guide from Pulitzer that we'll add to the LibGuide. And then
yeah, and then both of these are for anybody who is either gonna reread the 1619 project or is just getting started. These two resources are a really great place just to make sure that you have those reflection prompts and at your disposal. So yeah, but awesome, thank you. And are there any other library events that are taking place? Is there like a social media giveaway or an activity that's taking place?
I can tell you about what the book selection will be for next March, but maybe that's getting ahead of what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I think that'd be perfect. Yeah, let's end on that. Would you like to share?
Yes. Next month we're doing Rainbow Milk. Oh, it's kind of fading into my background. And this is going to be co-hosted by Cuesta Pride. We're so happy that students from that club chose the book. And the author is Paul Mendez. And we will also be putting together a library guide so that you can access information about it and copies of the book. That will be March 10th. It's again a Thursday from 1 to 2:30 p.m.
Oh, and could I also mention our book of the year this year is They're There by Tommy Orange, and we'll include an author. They will be visiting that day, and there'll be a student-led event at Cal Poly at 11 a.m. at the Indigenous and Native Student Center. Sorry, I don't have the name right there in front of my tip of my fingers, but that's going to be cool because the students are going to lead a Q&A with the author. So if you're interested in that, send a email to, I'll put it's cuestabook@cuesta.edu, and we'll get you on the list to go to that event. And also, if you want to go see the author give a lecture in the evening from 5 to 7, that's free for students as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here with us today. We'll be sure to also include within the library tab the slide deck if any of you want to reference it back, and we'll be sure to add those resources by the end of this week. So once again, thank you all so much for being here with us. And before we go, Denise, would you like to share anything?
I was just going to say thank you so much for doing this. And I think, we didn't really have a totally set plan, but Darius and Dawn had a great framework and you could see all the work they did. And we're just glad you're here and we're open to participating, and we'll do it again. Send us your ideas.
So thank you all. We'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you, Darius and Dawn, for putting that together.